Hey everyone, we're here for a third version of Ask Us Anything. And today we've got a special guest, and Kevin Neal is on board. Raise your hand, Kevin.
Hey
There he
guys.
is. And why don't you, of course, you and I know each other, but why don't you tell everybody more
Sure.
about you?
Certainly. Yeah. Personally, I'm a big animal lover. We've got two dogs and three cats, uh, and one wife. So it's all good. Uh, no human kids, but we've got plenty of tails and paws and sticky breasts and whatnot. So we've got a barn full. Business wise, I've been in the document imaging business, digital workflow business for about 30 years. Started in distribution, and then I went to a very famous document scanning hardware company for about 7 years as a product marketing manager. Then I was more kind of a fish out of water. I was more interested in software and solutions, so I went to an OCR text analytics software company for about 6 years. Most recently, that was where I worked for corporate America. And then I was talking about cloud computing, so I said, "Hey, if I don't take the leap of faith and start my own company and practice what I preach and eat my own dog food,
Uh,
then I would never forgive myself." So I started P3ID about 6 years ago now, and that's what we do. We make software, and we made a cloud platform that connects document scanning devices and copy machines into these modern kind of workflows. So that's what we do. I really enjoy what I'm doing. So that's my day job as president and CEO of P3ID Technologies is my company. And P3ID is for the power of three. So it's people, process, and policy, and all that has to go together. So
nice.
people, the process is the technology itself, the policies, governance, compliance around it, but people, always people.
Mhm.
People are the most resistant to change. It's hard to change their business habits, and it's hard to get corporations and the stakeholders to buy into $50,000 and $150,000 workflow solutions. So really, that's what we do. We take a consultative approach, just very much like you, Art, when you're consulting with your clients and trying to find the right kind of solution instead of saying, "Hey, this is our portfolio and it's got to be our stuff." If there's a better technology, a better solution that we're aware of, we will gladly share that. So that's what P3ID does. I'm also part of the AIM organization, so the Association for Intelligent Information Management. So I love to spend time with that nonprofit. And I'm also the marketing chair for the Twain Working Group. So you probably know Twain Drivers connects hardware devices to software applications. We've got a new version of it called Twain Direct, which is an API version of a driver. So it's kind of still early days where we need software companies and hardware companies to agree on this open source standard protocol to connect software applications to hardware devices. So I said a whole lot, but that's what I do. I enjoy what I'm doing. Art, we talked many times before, and I always like to say, "Hey, I'm really good, and I've been 30 years in this, or I'm really bad, and I can't get out of the industry, and I'm stuck." So I hope it's a prior, and people appreciate working with me, and vice versa. So that's what we do, and we love working with people, with organizations, and people like you, just to evangelize the idea and share ideas and whatnot. So that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. Awesome. So Greg, I guess maybe you'll get the first ask anything, and you heard all that from Kevin, and I'm sure you got some questions, right?
Well, yeah. Some good questions though. So I can get so Kevin, your company builds the interface between the hardware and the software. Is that what I heard you say, or you have the actual workflow, digital workflow software?
So as part of the Twain Working Group, I've used the Twain Direct open source API, but
Okay,
that's just connectivity. You need things like single sign-on authentication, multi-factor
right.
authentication, encryption. So we've built a solution called ScanBot that uses the Twain Direct specification that can connect to all these digital devices. And then we partner with companies that have back-end storage and workflow and
Okay.
AI systems and IDP systems. So we're kind of the capture front end is the way I would describe it, of interfacing into cloud services, basically.
Okay. All right. So your stuff would work with a multifunction or a Panasonic scanner, and I'm guessing the Twain or otherwise connectivity protocols of some sort.
Absolutely,
Correct?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And And you've been doing it for how long? That particular edge, 3, 5 years? I'm sorry. I missed
Yeah,
that.
no, it's all good. Yeah, we started the company 6 years ago.
Okay.
But been sincerely on this project about 4 years when Twain Direct came out. So about 4 years of active development for this project.
Okay. And do you guys, so who do you work primarily with? Resellers or OEMs? I mean, I know all, but how do you get to market?
So we started with the OEMs. So
Okay.
we work with a lot of the dedicated manufacturers for the single function devices like
Okay. All
Kodak,
right.
Kodak Alaris, Fujitsu, Epson. They're all part of the Twain working group. So obviously we
Got it.
get to interface, but the copy machines is still a big target. We know of them. I wouldn't say we're deeply engaged with them, but definitely OEMs, and then definitely ISVs too. So we're working with the ISVs. So those are kind of like the two initial target audiences.
So here's the question. Since you've started in including the COVID years, which are like a black hole,
Yeah.
and then even coming to like a year and a month ago with this whole AI thing, what's the evolutionary path that's occurred in either with yourself or that you've been able to observe in the industry, and that COVID seemed to influence, and now maybe artificial intelligence. What have you seen?
So that's a fantastic question to start. So you nailed it, right? We started this company basically during COVID, right?
Mhm.
And the truth of the matter is, yeah, I'm sure you probably heard this many times. As unfortunate it was for sickness and deaths and all that kind of stuff. The truth of the matter is, for technology companies, especially that were offering, a digital transformation solutions and for work from home, work remote kind of capture solutions, it really drove not only awareness but um, a need to solve a problem quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was people went to Best Buy and Fry's and Amazon.com and they bought all these all-in-one devices, and they shipped them to their home users that were working from home. So their home users were using their own internet, their own PCs, these
Yeah.
all-in-one printers. They were totally out of compliant. They're not secure, to the corporate standard, but it was something you had to do, right? So there was like a bump in sales of these kind of cheapo devices for a long time, and then nobody was using the copy machines in the office. So that
Mm-hmm.
was so that was a trade-off. So for our business, it was really good and it brought awareness. So everybody was doing that for a couple of years. Then they said, okay, this work from home, work remote thing is real. It's gonna happen, right? It's never gonna be all back in the office, or it's never gonna be all work remote. So we've got to find this hybrid, workflow environment. So now in the past year or so, there's been this really, let's get secure endpoints, right? We still need to have our work from home users, but let's make sure the computers are authorized and have endpoint security and have encrypted this and authentication and single sign-on, like all these things so these all-in-one devices that weren't made for real high security or
Mm-hmm.
major security risk, right? So they're connecting their PCs and downloading software and stuff. So now what we've seen, we sell more of a professional solution. We don't sell to the individual users. It's
Okay.
businesses that want to deploy systems. And back to us and say, okay, how can we get secure network scanners, for example, with your software to interface with it that is compliant? So I would say, as far as your question about COVID, I think it drove awareness that this is going to happen. So it's really good for business purposes. I would say that, absolutely, no doubt about it. And into the future, people are still looking to get solutions. So let me transition to the AI. This is a big deal too, but and honestly, we're just having fun on this recording here.
Yeah.
But I will say that AI is a real thing, yes, but it's been completely overhyped, right? A lot of people don't know what they're talking about. They've got their marketing materials from their marketing department, and they got some PowerPoint slides, and they got kind of a talk track on, how to talk about AI. But it's been around a long time. Like I said, I used to just work. The last company I worked at was a text analytics, natural language company. They did that, right? So I've lived this life for a long time. And now ChatGPT, what they brought to the world was awareness of this and let people use it, try it. So now it's really good for the industry, but it caused a lot of confusion. People think, hey, I could just go ask ChatGPT anything and it's going to write me a marketing plan. It's going to, write all my code, but it doesn't do it 100% correct. You could tell you know, it's computer generated, doesn't have deep understanding of certain things. So, but this is really good again, but there's always this hype cycle. Okay, ChatGPT's here, man. We're going to change the world. But the reality is it costs OpenAI $800,000 a day to run the infrastructure. Is any business going to try to compete with them? Or so you find a way to work with them and you create. So, so I think for our business, this is also really good because people want to use their AI cloud services. So they've created an AI model and they've created a large language model and they got this sitting there, but they still need lots of content to train it. Okay. So how do they do that? So they want to use our technologies to onboard all this content that they have sitting in file drawers and paper documents. So now they can scan it, use OCR, and then create the indexes and then let their AI engines create LLMs and use their AI analyze the data set and say, okay, in this whole data set corpus of millions and millions of documents I've captured, maybe I can find some kind of way that I could prepay my invoices quicker and I get a 15% discount. Maybe I can connect the dots and find some kind of, you know, there's kind of pollutants in the water in San Jose, California or something. Like there's really amazing things that these AI engines could be used for, but they got to have the data, right? If you don't have the data, you're not creating good models. It's basically garbage. Well, if you're not getting garbage in, you can't even have garbage out. So, you know, that's what I see, Greg, is I see these great cloud services, right? But they neglect the on-ramp. And it's so hard. You scan all your documents to a folder and then maybe browse and upload and then you've wasted like 30 minutes to do something that should have been done in like a minute. So so I think these two things are very, very closely connected. So I'm glad that you asked.
Well, yeah, it sounds like that you're, you know, the data, you're absolutely right. The data sets have to be, you know, that's what we're going to train my AI on, for example, right? Because right now it's a mass appeal. It's almost like B2C appeal. And the B2B market is trying to define and put use cases together and business cases together using AI, which will happen. Ultimately, though, it is, you know, can I throw my AI at my data, quote, securely? All right. Yes, you can. So now you've got a ton of data already somewhere, and every dealer does up in the digital world, whatever. But it sounds like your leverage point is going to be converting paper into digital or outside which is important because AI and LLMs are only going to be as good as the data they get, and the data they get is going to be as good as the sensors that allow them to interface with the real world. So that's where this actually applies. So having said all that, and this is a business question, I don't want to get too serious, but so do you see your how do you see your market, your TAM, your you know, where does your end game go? And even back to one of my original questions, so if you work directly with the OEM, so your sales force is devised to work with the Xeroxes and the so-and-sos and whatever, right? So that a Xerox dealer will have access to that, to your software. Do I have the model correctly? So you're not feeding out into the dealer channel, trying to pull your business through. You're pushing it up through the OEMs down into the dealer channel. Is that correct?
Correct. So yeah. So let me answer your last question first. So like yes. So we've taken our product ScanBot and bundled it with the Xerox scanners because Xerox has put the Twain Direct technology in the firmware of their
I
scanners.
just pulled the name out of a hat, by the way, so I didn't know that. Okay.
You nailed it. So we've got a partnership with them where their hardware and our software are bundled together as a 3-year or 5-year lease, and they get all the, you know, consumable kits and service contracts, and they get our software and they get set up and all this stuff. So basically, it's the whole thing together, and that's an example. Yeah, and now Xerox is and Visioneer, who's the brand licensee behind the Xerox dedicated scanners.
Okay.
So they're going to all the Xerox dealers and they're promoting these bundles called thin scanning solutions with Xerox scanners. So you nailed it 100% is that. As far as our TAM, so we do intersect many different markets. So one of the markets, you know, the numbers I know pretty well is the capture market's like a $6 billion market. And those are like traditional OCR companies like Kofax and Abby and Artsol and those kind of companies. But then there's this whole new breed of AWS and Tesseract that do, you know, document recognition, document classification, and these are huge opportunities, right? But the traditional guys are very good at forms processing, semi-structured or unstructured kind of content. The
Okay.
new wave is more like full page OCR, and they really don't have interfaces for kind of more complicated form stuff yet. So that's a huge recognition market, but we're also a cybersecurity company, right? Like I said, like things like multi-factor authentication and single sign-on, encryption, blockchain, even these new concepts of digital content authenticity and provenance.
Mm-hmm.
With generative AI, it's easy to create fake content. So you can create fake receipts and fake invoices, and you just don't know, right? You can create all kinds of stuff. And when it comes to the document processing, I could forge stuff very easily. And I could predict that might happen. There was a company just recently that got busted in Europe for creating fake airline. Well, they manufactured fake airline parts for engines, and the American Airlines and United, they don't actually check the parts. They check the inspection certificates, right?
Right.
Right.
So these certificates were forged, and the airlines were just accepting these things. It could have been catastrophic if nobody caught it, but it was like a small example. But focusing on, is this document an original, right? For
Authentic, yeah.
home mortgages and birth certificates and death certificates, that there should only be one original. Your medical record, Art and Greg, your medical record is your property. It's not the insurance company. It shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be the medical record company that owns this, but that's how it is right now, right? They own your data.
That's correct. Yep.
They sell your data. So how can we take it back, right? We can say this is provable. This is blockchain. I could revoke access. I could provide access to, EMR company and my doctor B and revoke it from A. So those are the kind of things. And I know, so that's a
pretty
long-winded
cool.
answer.
Yeah, that answers it. And I'm glad you swerved into the cybersecurity and even the blockchain side. So
Yeah.
so ideally you could intake docs and attach a blockchain right then and there, and then there's your whatever they call it, but your line of control or whatever. So right, is that how?
Yeah.
And then extend it probably beyond your scope, but then if you've got digital documents, you can apply the same thing to those, I'm guessing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the whole idea is we want a multi-channel input, right? So we've been talking about copy machines and document scanners, but from phones and from cameras are collecting video in the world. Your voice to take voice and then marry these all things together is very critically important. So there's not
So,
just
I
one
mean,
channel.
now we're getting in the weeds, but I kind of like this. So do you think blockchain is the answer? I mean, when do you reach the problem with overhead because of blockchain?
It's
You know what I mean?
so blockchain's part of it. So blockchain can provide. So what we're using it for first is just, this is an authentic document or not. So when you scan it or upload it, it's going to provide a hash value from the blockchain, and then you'll check it in or out. So we're going to offer a simple service like that. Just say this is
Okay.
true. I mean, it might look exactly the same to the human eye, but it's got a distinct kind of characteristics. So that's what we'll do. But then, because you could prove this as authentic document via a computer, you can just automatically trust it in your workflow. Like I said, like accounts payable, right? I could just automatically trust it because I know from that scanner with that blockchain hash, with that IP address, with that geolocation, with that authentication, I could prove it like 5 different dimensions. And then it automatically goes through. It doesn't have to have a person say, oh, is this a real document or not? But blockchain's part of it. There's new initiatives that we're part of, like with Adobe and Microsoft, and it's called C2PA. It's the Content for Provenance and Authenticity. And what this means is you basically put a manifest file inside with the image file.
Okay.
And this manifest file lives with the digital content wherever it might go. And what this means is that it's not only like blockchain, because you can use blockchain to put that hash value, but then everybody that touches it or opens it, it keeps a record of it. So maybe Greg, you viewed this document and you annotated it. So say Greg updated it and annotated it at this time. Maybe you can apply, like access control around that digital content, and it lives with the content. It doesn't live in a database where the database is providing access to the content. So it's a really good initiative. And CTPA, we're part of that. We're working on these kind of interesting things where you could say this is well, it's just proving authenticity of the content more than blockchain. So blockchain, like I said, it's a part of it.
Cool. Art, I didn't mean to hog the conversation.
No, hey, you know what? I just, last day of the month, last day of the year, last day of the quarter, and I just got an important email that came across and I'm like, okay, well, these guys are really deep into it. Let me answer my email.
That's that's all right. Yeah. Well, go ahead, Art. What's your question, sir?
So Neil, I mean, Kevin,
Sir.
you got any questions?
I did.
Ask us anything.
I do have a question for you. So you guys are, you really know the copy machine. Greg, what was your background on there? It was the death of the copy machine?
Yeah,
Was that-
Death of the Copier. That's just a blog I started in 2008. I got into the copiers in 99 with OSE, but I started
Okay.
technology back in 88, selling, I worked for a bunch of VARs, actually selling computerized accounting systems.
Okay.
So B2B, not B2C. And, I didn't know it at the time, right? We're converting people from manual accounting systems to digital, to computerized systems off of minis, mainframes, or shoe boxes. Didn't matter. And
Okay.
it was outside Detroit, so I got exposure to everything from construction, wholesale distribution, manufacturing, MRP, all of the manufacturing sides, big companies, little companies. I mean, I think at one point I had maybe a dozen accounting systems. I could have sold everything from Platinum to Great Plains, which is Dynamics, Timberline, blah, 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 blah. 2008, 6, 7, 8, in that range, I jumped out. I was working with Icon, moved from Icon to an HP VAR, still a VAR. They were now starting to become MSPs, but they were still VARs, and built out a management services practice in that VAR. The VAR was a $350 million VAR on the West Coast. It was excellent. Had a blast with it. HP was one of our partners. And then from that point on, pretty much consulting, helping other resellers build out MPS programs and manage IT systems. But the most fun I've had is working with the customers. So I've worked with, small little companies to help them build out an IT ecosystem to, globals like Johnson & Johnson implementing a nuts and bolts MPS program globally. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's
So the death of the copiers, it's been predicted that scanners will also be irrelevant. Like I've heard that my whole career.
yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen it materialize, or is it
No. Well,
materialized?
the death of the copier, absolutely. I mean, there were Art knows this. There was a time when every copier on the planet generated 10,000 images a week. It's like, okay. And printers, every new employee got a new printer and a new PC. That, those were the days, the heydays.
Yeah.
And, it's a long tail. The paperless world really isn't going to take hold, although it decreases 8% every year since the next, last 10 or whatever. So ideally, if you take the same, view as the output side, then someday the intake is going to have to diminish because people are outputting fewer and fewer printed documents that need to be scanned. That's what I was kind of asking is like, well, I know people have been digitizing since, Liberty and all that stuff.
I was just in an account yesterday, architect account. And they had, so they rent their facility, they pay per square foot for their facility. And they have 10, 20-foot rack spaces that are 15 feet high, filled with bankers' boxes of documents.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy, they've all got to be scanned at some point in time. They do.
So that's my point. Is like people will say, "Well, we're a paperless office," and then I go in there and they're leaning on file cabinets. I mean, literally, they will say that, and I'm like, "Really?" Or even if your organization, I say it all the time, big organizations, we're paperless, right? And I say, well, is your customer paperless, right?
Right.
If you're a bank, how do I get remote deposit? They're not going to, they're not going to integrate your system directly, right? Things still come in checks and invoices and receipts. How are you going to get remote deposit from your customers in the supply chain, right? So everything's not nicely put together, and I see that. So like, and papers is still a way that you can exchange information, right? But it's so costly to get it in. So that's my question for you guys. I know it was a kind of long-winded way to get there, but it seems like we all agree that over time output should decrease, the need for input should decrease. I hope, because that would provide efficiency. But it seems like the dealers still they can they've got a beautiful business model, right? Of monetizing service contracts and leases and paper and toner and all that kind of stuff. But I still have not seen monetizing the input portion of
No,
the copy machines.
no.
And I just can't believe that all this business is just sitting there on the table. It feels to me. Why can't they just apply a business model that says, okay, I'm going to charge you for every scan or every recognition or
Well,
something?
I think they did in the FM industry. You know, there were plenty of, who does that? Iron Mountain, I think, or some service at one point, because I sold a bunch of Panasonic scanners back in the day. I mean, it was those things were garbage disposals. So there was a time when, everyone was, you could there were FM facilities management systems were charging half a click, half a penny, half whatever it was per image. Now that was document processing, because they had to destaple them, all that stuff process, and it's very labor intensive, first off.
Mhm.
So there was a charge per file that included the click. But then, Art, and you can probably help me with this. Somebody somewhere in the dealer channel tried to start to charge per scan on the copy machines, and that ain't gonna fly,
Well,
because
it works, I would say. I mean, from what I've seen, I would say 5% of the dealers are charging for scans.
What?
I
Why doesn't it work? Is they haven't put enough effort into it, or customers just
I
resist?
customers always
Kevin,
got it for free.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I understand they always got it for free, but everything changes, right? Everything
agree.
changes, and lately, everything that we do on a personal level and sometimes on a business level, we're seeing more fees for this and that, and we're getting hit to death with fees, right? So I don't think a customer would mind having a bundle of scans if it wasn't too expensive. However, it's that dealer mentality that says, okay, do we want to go out and be more expensive than everybody else? Is somebody going to come in and give us free scans, and now we're not going to be able to compete? I think what they need to do the math, and the math is have a better understanding of how many scans are going through those devices annually. And then they can have the talk track with the customer. So I understand you're going to get charged for scans now, but let me tell you what that also includes with the scanning, right? And it's and this would be for the companies that have the embedded IT companies into them. They do more IT work. They can throw the value into that if your scanning goes down, we're going to automatically reconnect it because it got knocked off. We're going to have one of our guys log in to the machines, because a lot of the new MFPs now, technicians can actually log into the device to make a change, which wasn't possible as little as a couple of years ago. So I think if dealers put in more, do the math, put in more time, and build a little program, I think they can do it. Then right now it's just
It's easier if
busy.
it's a scanning project, right? If I go in and if I'm a customer, a client, and I've got, okay, listen, you're going to bring in your management services programs. We're going to reduce the number of printers down to, from 50 to 5, copiers from 12 to 6. They're all going to be connected. I've got this other issue. I need to archive my rows and rows and, 800 square feet of filing cabinets. Oh, okay. Now, the position is going to be, that's a dedicated scanning project. Let's make a proposal for that versus, scan those in on your Canon or your Ricoh. Or, there's another thing, Art, is the ADFs, they're not designed to take on 5,000 scans a day. They're just, there's that. Also, there's the cost. I'm a big cost up kind of guy. All right. If it costs me a penny to do something, I want to charge 5. So how much does a scan cost a dealer? I don't know. And wasn't that cost component already in the per click cost? I don't know. So, if I'm on the other side of the table and you're going to try and sell me scan clicks, I won't.
Now,
you'll be one of maybe, like you said, 5 out of 100. So there's not many people trying to pitch that. And then competitively, I'd slam that over your head. So no way. Maybe there's another, I don't know. That's what I mean. If it's a dedicated scan project, I can see it.
Are you on mute? I know you had a good point. That's why I want to make sure. I had a comment.
Yeah. So the scanners now, the manufacturers are making tremendous inroads with their scanners and what they can do. I see the scanners getting more like my Kodak I have right back here on my
Oh,
desk.
the ones built on the
right?
ADFs, the ADFs, is that what you're talking about? Not
Correct.
the
The,
dedicated. Okay.
You're right. They're making inroads with features now that they didn't that weren't there before, like a despeckle, a deskew, being able to take smaller size documents rather than statement, ledger, or legal. Right. So they're now able to go down in the size of the documents. So that is changing from what I've seen in the past 12 months.
Oh, well, the despeckle, the deskewing, the anti-skew stuff, that software's been around for a while. It hasn't really made it in. I mean, who was it?
But it's never
Kyocera couldn't scan straight to save their lives for like a decade or so.
but it's never been a feature that you had on your MFPs. It was basically done for those Epsons, Kodaks, and Fujitsus, which of course Ricoh now owns Fujitsu. So I think I don't know, but I could say some of that Fujitsu technology has made its way into the MFPs from Ricoh. I can't prove it, but I'm seeing the changes in the hardware.
I could see this. Well, I could see the software for sure getting in there.
Right.
But then I just go back to this. What's the biggest ADF on an MFP right now? What's the largest? 50?
300 pages now.
You can put 300 in
some
okay.
of them, yeah.
Okay. How would it handle a paper clip?
The same way your little scanner would.
Yeah.
It'd choke.
Yeah, but the scanners got and Art, I agree. Like the image processing, like auto size detection, blank page deletion, despeckle, all that is getting better in the copy machines. But when it comes to paper handling, like I think Greg was onto something. Like staples, these scanners have very sophisticated sensors in there, so they could detect a staple and stop the scanning before it rips the paper through the feeder.
I'm telling you, those Panasonics were crazy. And this is over a 10, I sold a bunch of them to Google. Yeah. And I remember the guy I go, why do you want like 20 of these? And these were the big dogs that literally a garbage disposal. They'll take anything. And Google's goal was to scan everything,
books,
every document on the planet. Oh,
yep.
Okay.
They wanted to index the world. That was their stated goal, right? So including that. Yeah. So, and then just going back to the business models, I said I worked at an OCR company, and the OCR business model is usually per page kind of thing, and people don't like that. I get it, right? They want a predictable kind of expense. So now I think there's an opportunity to sell subscriptions, right? Sell a subscription and just say, okay, it's a very consistent fee, right? And who cares if they scan millions and millions of documents, right? It's not costing you anything more. They're going to wear out their machines and need to buy consumables, right? Quicker. Then we're going to they're going to go over duty cycle. They're going to need more machines. So that's going to help you. They're going to get it refreshed quicker. So if you charge a reasonable subscription, it's fair for I think, Greg, to your point, right? Even though we want to monetize it completely, charge it, would cost you a penny, you want to charge a nickel, but you got to be fair too, right? And if you offer a good service with the hardware, software, that's why I think our bundles are really good. Like we do not charge a click charge. But if you're marrying it with maybe a software, maybe your Abby software, your Kofax software, then you pay the click charge to them. I mean, but that's your business, right? You can capture as much as you want. And we feel that's a fair thing. So
I totally agree with the subscription model. Absolutely. But you're going to run into headwinds, obviously, with the providers. That's just the way they've been doing it forever. And it's been, the whole thing was a system, putting it nicely, right? I mean, it was a penny a click was a lot of profit, and it fit into a really nice scheme that I know they're going to do 5,000 a month, but I'm going to charge them 0.00000 whatever for 3,000, I know that they're going to be 2,000 over. So the overages are going to be 4 times what I'm charging with the regular rate. So I can get my money plus that. Now,
Yep.
subscription base is good for a lot of different reasons. A, people accept it. B, there isn't going to be that much volume anyway. I mean, maybe not as much as there was before. And then, well, I don't know what you do with the remote work environment, right? So and you don't have to count meters. There's a lot of good reasons to do it. So if you can put that cost component, you pull that out of it. Whatever. There's ways it becomes just math. And you're right. It's a fair price. Well, whatever fair is, but it's a calculated price that can be achieved. You can just look at your ratios, and if you wanted to, just look at the average volumes of that customer, or just these guys been doing it for years. But and I don't know about Art, but I've been running. I mean, I still know people who are selling fax machines. I still know copier reps that are walking up and down the street selling copiers, 5 a month, and they're happy. But they're selling them. So that I don't know where the adoption rate falls anymore.
I think it's very slow. It's an adoption rate. It's there, but it's very slow.
Yeah.
As I said, with people, process, and policy, people, if you've been using a fax machine and you're used to pressing those numbers and sending it and receiving a paper, hey, it's to change that isn't easy, right? So
yeah, it isn't easy. Here's the
Hey.
sad and the good, but there's
Hey.
new generations coming.
yes,
They are not going to use a
Excuse me.
fax machine.
I know. They're born digital. Yes,
They
exactly.
will not. They can't use a clutch. They're not going to be able to dial a phone. There's no way.
Yeah.
And they grew up not having to. That's another thing too. It's like, well, no, why would I want to do that?
Right.
Oh.
So-
I'm sorry. I had a client tell me the other day, I'm your favorite customer. And I go, well, why is that? He goes, we print everything. We still print everything. And this is a younger guy in his younger 30s.
Oh, wow.
But he's on board with digitalization, but the owners and principals are not. It could be another thing too. Now you're seeing owners and principals working much a long time past that retirement age.
God, you're right.
I mean, I've got principals in their late 60s, 70s. And I've got a couple in their early 80s.
Yeah.
And they're still working.
Yeah, it's hard to, even if it's a family business, right?
Wow.
Does the next generation want to do that, right? I see a lot of them that don't want to do it. They're on to something else. They're interested in
that's
different
true, too.
stuff,
Yeah.
So they have, it used to be just, just give it to my children, right? And let them run the business. But and next generation, automatic. But I don't know. I have a couple friends that they want to give their business to their kids, but their kids, even though they're involved in the business, they ain't gonna take it over. They don't want to.
Right.
They want to do something else.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
but-
There's so much more cooler things to do now.
There is.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what we see in the copier industry, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there's no line of succession, and these dealers are getting bought. I met a guy online. So one of the favorite things I like doing is walking the beach, right? Finding things to make things and extend my creativity. So
Yeah.
one of the things I find is glass, right? Glass is garbage. It's been worn, it's been thrown in the ocean, but it can really come out to looking almost gem type quality. So a lot of people love that. But there's a guy I follow, his name is Captain Kai, right? On Facebook. I don't know, late 30s, early 40s. He's got this little puppy dog. He's on a sailboat, and all he does is sail the Caribbean looking for sea glass. That's his
Nice.
only job, from Bonaire to Aruba to Puerto Rico, you name the islands. He's been to every single one, and I see his pictures all the time, and I go, what a life this is, right? Now,
Yeah.
if I'm in my 20s and man, we didn't have social media, so all we knew what was basically in our geographic location, right? We didn't
2
know
miles away.
we didn't know anything else. And but now with social media, you know the world. So these younger people are seeing all these different awesome things they could do,
Oh, yeah.
which leads to not wanting to get into mom or dad's line of succession for their company.
Yeah.
But I would have made the change. I wouldn't have been selling copiers for 44 years.
Yeah.
But
Well, but I think so. This kind of leads me to the next question. I always like to predict the next megatrend, right? We're in the midst of generative AI and all this kind of stuff right now. But what is AI, right? It's mostly natural language processing and understanding. That's what it is, right? So I ask ChatGPT something, it understands natural language, it gives me natural language response. To me, that's kind of the essence. So I talk to my Google Home, I talk to my car, I talk to my refrigerator, I talk to everything like just naturally now. When I'm where I'm going is the copy machines, the scanner business, the software's too complicated, in my opinion. I love ease of use, even though I'm a technology guy. I love widgets and gadgets, but to scan a document, and I've been doing this for 30 years, like I said, I still have to like learn the software, and then I have to open the Twain driver, and there's a menu, and then a click, and then 10 clicks later, maybe I can get an image, and then it's flipped upside down the wrong way because I didn't do a setting right. And I'm supposed to be an expert at this.
Yeah.
So my question is, when can I just talk to a machine and just say, hey, I want to scan to Greg and make sure that the PII data is, not on the page, and I want to make sure it's emailed to Art and then copied to my Dropbox. Like,
so you can do that with certain manufacturers' copy machines with Alexa right now, but it's not going to give you those other points that you just asked about. It's going to say, okay, I walk up to the machine, I can tell Alexa, okay, I have paper in hand, right? I have paper in hand. I can put it in the feeder. I want to scan this to Kevin, Greg, and Art, and put this little note with it.
okay,
So
that wasn't
that can be done now.
okay. I wasn't aware of that because I noticed some of them had speakers and it could say, okay, you could say, when's my next service contract? And it'll say, these 5 machines need service now or something. Or, the whole
Right.
idea was to sell
Well-
more services and it's consumables basically.
The problem that I've seen is the adoption of using the voice interface hasn't taken off.
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
because it's somebody doesn't want to be caught talking to their copy machine in the office.
I would venture that it doesn't work as well as we think it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
could.
mean-
I know Rico said they were doing their integration with Alexa, and I really haven't heard much from it since then.
I get Alexa. Alexa gets stuff wrong for me just for everyday things. I mean, in the copier, duplex this, put 3 hole punches, make page 7 and 8, blah, 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 do a trifold and get me 15 copies. By the way, once you do that, scan or send a digital copy to my cloud and email 3 other folks. Oh,
Yeah,
I-
because it needs to understand specific vocabularies and ontologies and the industries, and that's what the LLMs are like.
right. The
creating.
LLM should be able to help at that. My point was, I had an idea. Is like, well, by the time the LLMs are set at that level, which aren't that far away, you won't need to walk up to the copier in the first place anyway.
Yeah, there
It's
we
like,
go. Yep.
oh, all right. Because
Yeah.
one of my big things is nobody wants another reason to stand next to a copier. Nobody wants another reason. You can't, if you put coffee machines on it, maybe, but that was before work from home.
Right.
Now, God, I don't even know.
Right. So I use this all the time even when I'm in the office. I go, no one copies anymore. People print, people scan, but no one copies anymore. Right. So you're going back to your website from years ago, Death of the Copier. No one copies anymore, but they still print and they still use it to scan.
I think there's more growth on the scanning side than there is on the output side. It may be minuscule, may not, it may be in the single digits, but I think there's more growth potential on capturing what's already printed. And for a lot of different reasons, I think the AI issue, capturing what data I need, I think that there's still plenty of companies that still, like you said earlier, print on paper. I though am of the belief that there are fewer than there were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Last time I was in a bank for a car loan, there was an HP 45 or 4345 or whatever it was. It was a plant holder. No, that was a Xerox. We didn't signed everything digitally in the office. There was no paperwork. There was literally no paperwork.
Right.
So I'm just a Joe Schmo walking in off the street, you know.
Right.
It's interesting though. I think that the digitization, the capturing of the data, and the way it feeds into AI, and I think that we don't need to open this can of words, but maybe a slight shift back to localized processing, edge,
Mhm.
maybe edge, and then the broad stroke, bring the servers back and put them in the closet, kind of thing. I don't know if that's going to
Mhm.
happen, but if you look at it, NVIDIA and the chip manufacturers are going to manufacture chips that have AI burnt in, or AI. Well, I don't want to get too whatever. But now I can have a machine in my proximity with my AI on it, physically secure. Go back to
Yep.
security, right? It's
Yep.
there.
Yep.
It's got my AI, whatever, and my data on it. And if I want to, then I can control its access to the interwebs, right? I don't have to worry about anything else, but how often I let it out and what to look at. I don't
Greg,
know.
I think
So
yeah, we don't need to go rabbit hole, but I agree. You know, Nvidia and Qualcomm. I know Qualcomm's working on putting AI in their chips too. So if you yeah, and that's what I have a concern with the open AI, right? They had a data breach where it wasn't a big deal to me because I was using it for marketing, but my stuff was exposed to other people, and I saw other people's stuff, their histories, and it was
Mhm.
just like an honest mistake, right? But they were in their desire to like get so many users, they didn't take security as seriously as they did. So
Oh, there were a lot. Yes.
do you
Yeah.
trust them with your data, right? I wouldn't trust them with my medical records, with my accounting stuff. I would not trust them. So I want local AI, yes, and I want to use as much on the edge as I can because it's still very CPU intensive. So
Mhm.
I think you'll see that as a major. And those machines, they sit there like unutilized maybe 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Why not
Yeah.
use it for stuff like that? So sorry, Art, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I get real energized about these kind of topics.
Cool. We haven't even
right.
started about talking about bourbon yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, no. Yeah, I'm actually been emailing the client back and forth and
The last
trying,
day of the month of the year.
yeah,
I
trying to
love it.
get
Close it.
down within the last 15 minutes or so. So Kevin, real quick, since you're into that scanning world, right? One of the things I always thought about for that would enhance an MFP is a social media integration. So I could take a legacy document that's still on a paper format, and I could scan that right up to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and do some marketing as an app right from the MFP, where it would connect to my Instagram, connect to my Facebook.
So that's interesting, Art. So we went down this road a little bit with Facebook had this place. Well, they still have it called Workplace. It's their business version of Facebook. And I think that they had big customers like Walmart and I think some other referenceable companies. So we did do an integration for them, but we didn't find that. I don't know, for whatever reason they weren't using it. The use case wasn't scanning and uploading documents. I agree. I think that scanning to Slack and scanning to, yeah, LinkedIn and Facebook, Workplace. I think there's a case for it, but in those cases, I think the ISV has to do the work to evangelize this. And Facebook's like such a consumer application.
Right.
Have they really put the effort, even though they had a good team and stuff? And this was years ago when I was working with them. It's not recent, but can they really talk to a customer and say, this is how you really do document management, digital workflow, and maybe the I don't know what reason, but I don't know. We went down that road a little, and I didn't see it being successful. So we kind of just backed off on it. But scanning your resume to LinkedIn and maybe populating fields automatically would be useful because I know if I put up my resume, it doesn't get like good. It doesn't populate the fields accurately, and I'm having to do more cleanup than it's worth at this point. So maybe the technology didn't work. good. But to scan an image, yeah, maybe, yeah, and index it.
Interesting.
find-
That was
you
my
find
last question.
Find a customer, and that always drives the development, right?
That's right.
Correct. Right.
Anything can be done with money and
Oh,
time.
Right, and yeah, my thought about doing that is probably the only person who's slowed out in the freaking world. So, yeah, there's not a lot of money there, my friend.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we've just been about an hour, and I think this has been a great
Oh,
session.
wow.
Kevin, I'd like to welcome you back at any time you'd like to chime in. We're going to go every Friday. We're always going to have the link on the Print for Pay Hotel. You know, and anytime you want to chime in, we'd love to have you, because I think the talk track that we had today was exceptional.
Yeah, I
Well,
love it because it's like it's old school, only it's not, right? I mean, Twain, I've heard of Twain since the very, very, very beginning of scanning with those flatbed single. It had
Yep.
to be Twain, and I think parallel printing was still around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Parallel
SCSI.
serial.
SCSI.
SCSI, oh my God,
Yeah.
SCSI and SD and RAM versus ROM and expanded versus extended memory. God, all right, but no, this has been great, and I'm really nice. It's really good. I'm happy to hear that it's viable and relevant, right? I mean, it is. You've got and it's a familiar but still a new horizon, right? Because everyone knows what scanning is, but it's still very relevant and might be even more relevant. And that's we've not to go off, but in the last 12 months, there's been all this resurgence of what is old is now new. It's management services is back. Customers want you to manage their printers. They're approaching them. Scanning, which everyone took it for granted, is still and is making a resurgence back. I think the SMB is responsible for that. I think, like you said earlier, the COVID move made everyone a technologist like they've never been before. That's why I really like COVID is the big corporations sent everyone home and said, "Yeah, you guys go figure it out."
Yeah.
Right.
And they did. That's
did.
what's key.
They did. Yep.
That's
No,
cool.
I'd love to come back. We just
All
touched on a few topics, but I think the old is very relevant, right?
Mhm.
Machines with all this memory and cloud and AI, and it's putting all these all together in a way that's like delivering really incredible solutions that are super easy to use, but very advanced in the delivery. And that is finally upon us. Cloud services aren't mysterious. Connecting devices isn't so hard. Web services makes integration quicker and faster. The edge computing, right? Putting stuff on chips. But if you think about all these things, they can all be related in a very nice, efficient solution that doesn't cost a whole lot.
Right.
It's not going to cost millions and millions of dollars and take 3 years of development, right? These kind of things can be delivered relatively quickly. So I think there's great promise, and we just need to talk about it and expose it and get feedback and create prototypes and have people test it. If we do that, then I think the whole industry wins, and that's kind of I think if we could drive the overall bigger pie, then everybody gets their slice. So that's all good.
Cool.
That's right. Cool.
So everybody, I'd love to end this call because I want to go sell a copy machine.
There you go. Close it. Always be closing.
Kevin, I want to thank you very much for coming on board. You're always welcome to come back at any time. Greg, as always, we love our chats, and I would hope that everyone tunes in the next time, which is going to be next Friday. You can always get the link on the Print for Pay Hotel website. You can see it on LinkedIn when we post it up. And be sure to like, follow, and share.
Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.